This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
As an entrepreneur, it's actually better to rent where you live. And so my wife and I live in this beautiful home, and people are always asking me, well, what's the mortgage? I'm like, I don't know, I rent it. And I mean, you can just see the judging looks all the time. It's so funny. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like, here we go. But that was actually one of the best tips I've had.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, otherwise known as the Media Boss, and I am here to tell you what this podcast is all about. First of all, what is a media boss? Well, a media boss is someone that controls their media. See, what happens is a lot of us have been spoon-fed media for our whole lives, and we're running businesses now on that same premise that we have to wait for someone to give us something in regards to media. But no, you don't. You can create your own media. And what we do on this podcast is we bring you people who are showing you how they're creating media, and we're here to show you how you can do the same. So what I want you to do first is make sure you let everyone know you're listening and watching the Media Boss. So go ahead and share it. Share it. Let everyone know that you're paying attention to the Media Boss Podcast, and let them know that they should download our episode too, because everybody needs to be a part of this podcast. Another thing I want you to do is make sure that you are paying attention to us in every way that you can, whether it be Patreon, whether it be on YouTube, wherever you want to find us, make sure you're doing that as well, because the Media Boss Podcast wants to make sure that we can attract everyone and get to everyone so that everyone can be, you got it, a media boss. So what we're going to do right now is open up the show with a segment I like to call the Media Minute. And the Media Minute is where I just tell you just a little bit something about some form of media, because there are various forms of media, if you hadn't noticed. Today, we're talking about social media. And I want to talk to you about the negative, that's right, the negative aspect of social media. And this is very important because my guest today, he and I were talking about something we're going to be doing to talk about positive aspects, but I want to talk to you about the negative aspects of social media. This was actually an article that was written by the Eurasia Review by Asad Ali. And in the article, it mentions that there are over 4.6 billion worldwide people actively using social media. And when I'm talking about the main platforms, they're talking about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, et cetera, you know, the main ones that everyone goes to. But the problem is that they're being so politicized, and certain groups are going against other groups that is shaping the thought patterns of other people. Now, we don't want that, man. We want everyone to be able to think freely without having to worry about the manipulation. Social media should be just that, social. So what we want to do is make sure that we are very careful about not only what we're posting, but what we're reading, what we're listening to on social media. I'm not telling you how to run your life, but I think that you can catch more flies with honey. At least that's what I was always taught. So right now, I want to get you focused on doing some positive social media. So right now, guys, you know what I want to do? I want to bring on my guest today. This guy and I, we have become fast friends. I mean, real fast friends. And we're going to be doing some great work together. Like I said, we're going to be working internationally. We're going to be doing some things all over the world that are going to be expanding media for every single country, or at least we're going to try every single country. So, but I want to tell you, he is an iTunes top 25 podcast. Do you understand what that means? iTunes, first of all, we're talking Apple. He's a top 25 podcaster. He's built multiple million-dollar businesses. Multiple, not one, multiple million-dollar business. Over 17 million podcast listeners across multiple shows. He's interviewed over, check this out, 1,500 successful entrepreneurs in just 5 years. So I know you're saying, who is this guy? Who is this guy, Barrett? Well, I'm going to tell you, just calm down. You don't get to have all my people. He's my person right now. So he has a podcast called The Lucky Titan, and I want to bring to you none other than my friend, Mr. Josh Tapp. Josh, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast.
So excited to be here, man. I feel like we got to have a soundtrack in the background.
That's right. Don't tempt me.
Like, oh, hey, let's dive into it, right?
Don't tempt me. Look, I can have that done. So maybe on the exit we might have to have that done. Since said it again. But Josh, okay. First of all, talk about the Lucky Titan. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into a mile-long explanation of where that one came from, but the funny part about it is that the Lucky Titan was actually the Lucky Entrepreneur. That was our first title of the show. And then we got a cease and desist letter from Entrepreneur Magazine, which I didn't know they had the trademark and the copyright on the word entrepreneur. It's like one of 3 words that somebody somehow managed to get it. We could have won the battle, but so just, expert tip, don't put entrepreneur in the title. But it was actually a really unique moment for me because I was able to step back and say, okay, but what are we really about? Because that was when I was about, I want to say 30 to 50 episodes in. So I really wasn't far enough in to feel like I can't change this. Right. And luckily it gave me that moment to say, how do I pivot this to be what I really want it to be? I now know what I want to podcast about. I know what type of media I want to produce. And the Lucky Titan really came from that. As I said, okay, you know what? We're going to keep it around the theme of luck, right? Because I don't believe in it. And I think it's really funny, right? Yeah. Because some people do believe in luck. I'm not a believer in luck. But anyways, we named it the Lucky Titan because I was like, you know what? I want to interview like some of the world's most successful people, but not the Grant Cardones, the Warren Buffetts, those people that everybody knows their name. I want to start interviewing these A-listers that nobody knows. And the funnest part about this is finding these people who've done hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, and they're really only known in this little sphere. They're not these well-known people, and telling their stories has become honestly an addiction for me, is to find that next person with the coolest story, bring them on my show, get time to chat with them. They always give me free coaching from it. It's glorious. It's a moment to get coached by billionaires. It's a good time. But that's really what the Lucky Titan is all about. And we've built our whole company around that.
Now I got to ask you this. So what is one tip that you've gotten from a millionaire or billionaire that's helped you?
Don't own your own home as an entrepreneur. It's a really, I could dive into that one because I've learned to defend this opinion with math. But as an entrepreneur, it's actually better to rent where you live. And so my wife and I live in this beautiful home, and people are always asking me, well, what's the mortgage? I'm like, I don't know, I rent it. And I mean, you can just see the judging looks all the time. It's so funny when I'm like, yeah, okay, like here we go. But that was actually one of the best tips I've had.
And it's one of those things that, we've been taught certain things in our lives, and we just think, oh, that's what you have to do. And it's not always what you have to do. Yeah. It's funny. One of the tips I learned from a billionaire one time, it wasn't necessarily a tip. It was just something he said to me that changed my whole way of thinking. And I was talking to him and I said, I need to think more outside the box. And he just looked me dead in the eye and goes, why are you in a box? And I just said, wow, I guess I put myself there, huh?
Well, and Barrett, it's such a funny question because, and I love it because, I could list off 5,000 things that I've learned from them. It's so interesting to study the successful people on this earth. But I do think one of my personal favorites is when they look at me and say, Josh, you're onto something. When I hear a super successful person say that, it's like, it's such good validation to know, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Right. Yeah. And I know you get that all the time, Barrett, because we've had many conversations, but it's just, It is. Because
look, I don't care who you are. You need some validation.
Oh yeah.
Even some of the successful people we talk about seek validation because they're always coming up with something new, and they want to know that somebody likes it. If nobody likes it, it ain't going to work. So that validation is necessary. Now, your podcast. So you've been running it how long?
This podcast is only about 3 to 4 years old at this point.
Okay.
Wow. But we've had 4 different shows.
So I gave a little bit, but please tell the audience a little bit about the success of the podcast.
Yeah. So the podcast itself, it was actually kind of interesting because the methodology behind growing it, when we made that transition from the Lucky Entrepreneur to the Lucky Titan, it was that moment where I don't know if I should even say this because I am a Christian man, but it's the come to Jesus moment, right? Where I do think every company has to do this at least once a quarter, sit down and look and say, are we really going in the direction we want to go?
Yeah.
And
I did.
I've done it many times. And I had a couple mildly successful marketing businesses at this point, but they were mostly with local business owners. And I was really just kind of getting fed up with the client, to be completely real. It wasn't that I hated them. They were just hard to work with. And for me, I was like, you know what, maybe it's time to just pivot what we're doing. And with the Lucky Titan, I said, let's use this as a testing ground. Let's try everything under the sun, right? We're going to throw money at it. We're going to throw people at it. We're going to throw everything just to see what works, right?
Right.
Because the truth is that in the marketing space in the podcasting space in particular, it's the most ambiguous, vague industry as far as how to grow. And people will tell you, oh, do XYZ, buy ads, or have your guests promoted or post it on social media. Truth be told, none of those things really worked for us, right?
Right.
A combination of those worked for us. But at the end of the day, I have 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, something like that.
Right.
If I post on there, I still only get 1 to 2 comments. Nobody clicks from LinkedIn to go to my podcast, right? And it's so intriguing because everybody has these preconceptions of what needs to happen when it comes to marketing a show in particular, or media. I'm going to use media since we're here on the Media Boss podcast, right? But media in general has to be advertised differently. And the way that you do it is you find pools of people who are already interested in that topic.
Yeah.
And you buy your way in, you work your way in, you have to do whatever you can to get in front of that pool of people instead of trying to just create your own audience out of thin air. And what we did with the Lucky Titan was say, okay, like, who are the influencers? Who are the other podcasters? Who are the business leaders in this space? Who are the, whatever, TikTokers, YouTubers, whatever. I'm not a fan of TikTok personally, but anyways, all of these different platforms, like, who are the top players in this space who already have congregated lists? And then here's the key thing. Which ones of them have an email list? Email. Okay. That is your number one tool. If you take nothing else away from this conversation, is leverage email. On my email list, 70% of people who are on my email list listen actively to my podcast.
Wow.
Actively, right?
70.
And 70, right?
Wow.
Where on social media, it's maybe like 0.01% of people will come over and listen, right? It's huge difference. And so when I started tracking that number, I said, well, then how can I get A, more people on my email list, but B, how do I get in front of people who have email lists of my ideal client or ideal listener? And so I went to those people and we worked out deals where I either paid them for it or we worked out a cross-sell deal or something to where I could be promoting to 300, 400,000 people. Yeah. And a good 5 to 10% of those people come into my world. They buy my stuff, they listen to my show, and then they become indoctrinated in what I do. And our whole company is now built off of that, of saying, okay, how do we leverage email lists? Because weirdly enough, people who listen really like to read too. It's a funny thing. There's video watchers and then there's listeners and readers. They're kind of like,
it is. I get that, because they say a lot of the podcast listeners of the world are, they're more educated people, they say, and they actually are higher income and consumers. So that most of those people are readers.
Right.
Yeah. So I have to ask this question because we talked about it prior. So have you ever done a podcast on Marvel Comics?
No, I need to do that. I want to build one. So I'm not the nerd who's read every comic.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I really want to.
I like the movies and the shows.
Yeah, I'm definitely a movie guy. My wife makes fun of me for this because she's very outdoorsy, and I'm like more of the woman in our marriage, unfortunately. She's like outdoors. Like, let's go fishing. And I'm like, I'd rather watch Marvel things. That's not a woman thing to do. I know why I said that, but like my wife is like more of the man in our relationship that way, and I love going outside and doing stuff, but I love Marvel, and Marvel is honestly, if you want to learn about marketing, go pay attention to what they do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think that's one of the main reasons I love them. I love superheroes. I love that concept. But I love watching all of the side stuff that they do that generates buzz. It's unbelievable the way they unparalleled. There's nobody else who gets even close.
And I tell people, I said, even the littlest thing, like at the end of the movie, you can't leave because you know they're going to come up with another clip before you walk out of the theater. It's like just that little bit, because we all know now. At first, people walking out, we know now we can't leave.
There's still people walk out. I'm like, you are such a noob. Sit here to the end of the credits.
And even on the TV series now, when they do it, I have to watch to the end of the credits.
Yep.
Because there's something that's coming, and it's like, it's just something that people just, the Marvel fans know it. And like you, I'm not one of. I don't have Marvel comics anywhere. but I like the movies. I like the way and the marketing is phenomenal. It is.
Yeah.
So have you implemented any of those things in what you're doing?
Very much so. And I was going to mention one of them because you look at people like Marvel, right? And they have this huge production value. I mean, they can spend millions on an ad and not even blink an eye because they're going to make billions and billions of dollars from these films. And from all the paraphernalia and shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that if you pay attention to what are the actors and actresses doing, where are they going and speaking on shows and whatnot, they go on these speaking tours, but they don't go on that many shows, right? No. If you go watch, it's Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, the big names, right? Because they have an in. But it's not just the fact that they have an in, is that those people have huge lists of their ideal audiences. And if you pay attention, if they go on Jimmy Kimmel, he doesn't just bring them on their show, or excuse me, Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's my favorite. But Jimmy Fallon, he doesn't just bring them on the show. He doesn't even really talk about the show until the last second. He plays with them, has fun with them, and builds a friendship with them. Yeah. And then he'll also post about it 15, 20 times about just how fun it was, right? Oh, it was such a fun conversation, or I'm so excited to talk to them about this. But at the end of the show, he's like, and go check out their movie. It's coming out in theaters, XYZ. And that's it. That's the only promotion he does. And if you look at that in business and you stop trying to be like, I'm going to come on a podcast and pitch all day. It's like, go have fun with them, have a fun conversation. And at the end of the day, people are like, okay, but what do you do? Why are you here? And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we have this podcasting business, the end. Right. And it's not this pitch fest of, oh, here's why you should hire me, you know?
Now, speaking of that, you do something for podcasters that is untouched. So I mean, when I first heard, I was like, "Whoa, I got to work with this dude." So if you don't mind, please talk about that.
Yeah, about our podcasting company. So we have a company called Podcast Multipliers that sits underneath our mothership brand around marketing. But what we do is we focus really heavily on repurposing content for the intent of taking a brand from, or a person, mostly like a thought leader, from unknown to viral, right? Because they're everywhere, they're being seen everywhere. And the way that we do that isn't anything spectacular. We just chop up the media and post it in other places. But again, that's not how they grow a following, right? So we've actually launched this product called the Pantheon, which is what you're talking about, Barrett, which this has been a labor of love for like 10 years for me of this is like the culmination of everything that we've done. It's ultimately, we've looked at what's been working for our clients, and then how can we help scale up groups of podcasters instead of trying to go one-to-one, right? Because at the end of the day, building a show is really not that hard. Launching a podcast is not difficult. You can learn how to have great questions. Like, the content itself is usually pretty rich content. But what we've done is we've gone out and we've made this huge affiliate network of people who have pools of listeners and customers and whatnot who love that topic. And so what we do is we then take all of our shows and we say, hey, go check out all these entrepreneurship based shows. We have one on marketing, we have one on business, we have one on media, we have one on insurance, whatever, right? On all these different things. And we go and present them to these audiences for people. So we're getting your podcasts anywhere like, it's like 3,000 to 10,000 downloads a month right off the bat, which kind of squares you up to get sponsorship, right? And then you can then leverage our services later to actually help you to scale and spread out. But you've got to have an audience first, right?
Yeah, that's incredible. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to talk about some other things too. I want to take a break right now, so everybody just stay right where you are. We're going to be right back with Josh Tapp right here on the Media Boss podcast. And stay right where you are. We will be right back. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Okay, welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. As I told you before, my guest is the bomb. I can't help it if I know great people, but you just have to follow me so you can get access to them. That's all I can tell you. Just make sure you're following the Media Boss Podcast. So, as I said earlier, we're not going anywhere. I got with me right now, Mr. Josh Tapp, the lucky Titan himself. So Josh, we were talking about what you do with Pantheon, and about how many people have you shown success with that method, and how's that work for people?
So we've done the Pantheon method itself. I've actually been working on developing for years. And so we've done around 750 podcasts at this point. Wow. Successfully scaling them, getting them onto the charts, getting them monetized, that sort of thing. The Pantheon itself is actually, at the time of 2022, whenever we're recording this, right? I had to question the year in my brain. What year is it again?
I do that. I do that a lot with my age. But
I'm sure me too. How old am I? But anyways, we've been launching this offer now as a way to boost industry. So we've actually been going in and building networks of people around certain topics. And to answer your question, that's how long we've been doing it, I guess. I don't want to dive down.
Well, yeah, I want to also find out what kind of success have you had for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the core tenets is that we're here to help people monetize their shows. And everybody's like, well, when do I get sponsors? I don't even have sponsors on my show right now, to be honest with you. I'm actually working on that right now.
All the time.
Right. Everybody. I kid you not, Barrett. I've spoken probably in front of 200, 300,000 podcasters in my time. Every time, without failure, people. So how do you make money with it? And they're like, okay, do Patreon, do 15 other places, right? You need to have sponsors, all these things. Truth be told, there's actually easier ways to make money with a podcast.
I agree.
You just have to flip it on its head. And I will explain the results here in a second, but what we really heavily teach is that leverage a show for the networking purpose of it, but don't do it just to be like, oh, hey, we're friends now. You need to look at the relationship and say, how do I provide enough value to this person that it's worth money to them?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean your product, right? A lot of people, they bastardize this term or this methodology by bringing people on their show, and every guest they have, they're like, okay, you should buy my thing. It's amazing. It doesn't always work that way, right? And when we started teaching this initially, people started doing that. And I'm like, stop, that's not what you do. Really what you need to focus on is that leverage your show in a way to say, what value does this person need in their life, right? If you're in the business space like I am, you're working with entrepreneurs, and I'm interviewing people who are typically, making 10 million plus is typically the average person that I work with. They have specific needs. All of them have the same needs. But what I'm doing is, as I'm interviewing them and listening to them, I'm finding out this is where they need help, right? And so I'll talk to them, be like, hey, do you need a podcast? We do it. If they don't need that, what I'll do is I'll figure out, okay, maybe they're having a lead gen issue right now, or maybe they really want to write a book. And then what I do is I make partnerships with other people that I can refer their services to these people for a cut. So for me, I make money every time somebody comes on my show because I find and diagnose the need, and then I prescribe a solution. I don't always do it myself, but I can hand it off to somebody else for a chunk.
And that's really, I do the same thing. And it's one of those things, and I'm glad you brought that up about, because I swear people And it's like, I don't know where you get that idea from. You start a podcast, it's just going to make you money. No, it's not like that. One of our friends, you and I have spoken about, on our conversations, is Myron Golden. And Myron taught me one thing, and it's about you want to create value. You want to create value. So like Myron has a podcast, and so I need to get him on here sometime. But he has
tomorrow.
A podcast. Right. He has a podcast himself, and he does not sell on his podcast at all. He provides value. I remember when Clubhouse first came out. Well, actually, it's been out for a little bit. He was kind of late to the game finding out about it. I remember he said, "How come you didn't tell me about this?" I said, "Because I sure didn't know what to do with it." But the thing is, he went on there and he started just speaking, actually on other people's platforms, really, and creating value, and then leaving. And when he left, people went to his Instagram because they wanted more value. Right. Then they got into his cycle. Once they did that, but he didn't come on there to sell anything. And that's the one thing he taught me. He was like, look, man, go on somebody's Clubhouse, whatever, say something that's really important, drop the mic and leave.
Yeah.
Provide value, leave. And then and you can let them know, hey, you can follow me on Instagram, on Linktree or whatever, but don't sell them.
Yeah.
And you could do the same thing on your podcast, because the thing is, your podcast is not a cash register.
No. Yeah. It's not a direct marketing activity.
No.
It's a voice. It's you sharing value. It gives you a opportunity to give back, and then just watch what happens. I see people so often trying to just bash in offers, and they're sitting here trying to beat in other people's offers into people's heads. And you're like, just let them do their thing. Just let them listen, right? Yeah. People don't watch TV to sit here and be like, I need to buy, right? It's just, we're just throwing ads in front of them and they eventually buy, right?
It's not like the old days of television where they would be in the middle of the show and the host of the show would, hey, come buy this soap,
Yeah, exactly. No, it was like Dove, right? Goes right after it. Yeah, so you bring up a good point there too. And one thing I wanted to add into there as well is that if you want to learn how to provide rock solid value like that, there's a concept to look into. It's called opening and closing loops. It's an old writing concept of, if you've ever read a great book, right? I'm just going to use like Harry Potter as an example, right? Is that every chapter, there's like 4 or 5 unanswered questions. Yeah. You're like, okay, wait, who is Dumbledore? Why is he so cool? Right. And like, I'm totally nerding out over here. I probably should use Marvel as an example, but my wife and I love
Where's
Harry
your
Potter
wife when we need her?
Yeah, I know, exactly. My wife loves Harry Potter. So, but anyways, right, is it opens these loops and they don't get close. You have to go read all 7 books to be able to actually have a full understanding of what happened. And still to this day, there are still unfinished loops. And so you're so involved in the world because people are speculating, and the best brands do that. And the best people do that.
Yeah.
If you go into people's
Star Wars
world,
did that.
Yeah. Star Wars did it great. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Marvel, all of those did such a great job of opening and closing loops. And the beautiful thing about it is that in our world, in the business space, it's not that hard to open and close loops. The truth is to not always give away the punchline, right? Give some extreme value that gets them a win. And then they're like, wait. But I need the answers to all of these questions. If you can get good at finding 1 or 2 of those things, tie it to a good story, and then go share it all over the place. Don't even mention your links. It's so funny because people will go and Google you. So make sure that you're actually showing up on Google, please. That's not hard to do. Have a good LinkedIn profile. That's all it takes.
That's true.
But they'll start searching for you, and those people buy like crazy because they've been digging to find you. And when they find you, they're like, yes, right? It's a dopamine hit for them. And then they move forward with that.
You're making me, I got to get Myron on the show because you brought out something that he said to me. He said, and I have definitely stolen it, so I have to give him credit. But it's one of those things that, and you hit on it, is that a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to find their ideal clients instead of making themselves findable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are people looking for you. They just don't know you. And so make yourself findable. Yeah. Instead of looking for them, it's easier for them. If you make yourself a beacon, they'll find it.
Well, and to solidify your media minute this morning, right, was that social media is not the place that is going to get you out there. Social media disappears within 2 to 4 hours. Okay. You post on social media, it's there and gone. Social media is a way to educate and keep your existing audience interested in you.
Interested, yeah. It's engagement.
And it's the engagement, right? What Myron does, great example, right? He goes on to other people's clubhouses, into other people's groups. Again, those pools of customers.
Yeah.
And just gives value. And then people will start searching in that same community, right? What is her name? Oh my goodness. This is going to bug me. She's a big ClickFunnels lady, but her and Myron are like best friends. It's going to bug me what her name is. Marcy?
Allison? Oh, Marcy?
No. Oh my goodness.
Annie?
It's going to bug me. No, she's not in ClickFunnels. Anyway, moral of the story is what she did is she went into the ClickFunnels community. Mm-hmm. No business or anything, or like she had a business, but no real success. And she went in and every day she would make a huge value add post. Like one day she posted, here are 141 headline templates. Wow. I still use those today, or 147 or something, right? And then I've actually taken that and made those into podcast headline templates.
I can't remember the name either.
It's going to bug me, but you probably know who she is. If you went,
I know who she is. I just, the name is escaping me right now.
Right. It's going to come to me here in a minute. I can just like feel it coming to my tongue, but I'm
on stage.
Okay. Yeah. But she went, she posted like that every single day. And then people started reaching out to her saying like, okay, but can you dive a little bit further into this, or how do you do this? And then, or what do you do? She went from $0 to $1 million in like a year and a half just by doing that. And she just hung out in the ClickFunnels community and provided value because there's a whole pool of her ideal customers there. And she's the one who ran his summits, Russell Brunson summits. Anyways, he like now has her do things all the time. Yeah. And she was a nobody, right? Yeah. It was just saying, I'm going to give value, leave the loop open. Don't ever pitch my stuff. And yes, it's a long-term strategy. But if somebody is sitting there across the screen from you or face-to-face with you, and they have given you their time, act like a doctor, diagnose, figure out what they're in need of or what they're excited about.
I like the way you said that. Act like a doctor, diagnose. I love that.
Don't be a marketer. Don't be a salesperson. Don't try to shove things down their throat. You're just be the person who's diagnosing the symptoms, right? Oh, okay. So you have a book. It's like, if you're a marketer, they're like 5 to 10 core things that everybody needs. They need to have a podcast, a book, they need a course, they need social media presence, they need ads, and and you can list off all these different things, SEO, right? And you could take those and say, just ask them the questions. Do they have any of these 6 things? If they have all 6 of them, they're probably not a fit for you. Yeah. But I guarantee you, if you have a list and you're like, okay, do you have a podcast? Do you have a book? Like, do you have all these things? It opens the gateway to say, oh my gosh, well, you need this. And they know they need it. And you're like, oh, here's a great solution for that. Here's this person. Let me introduce you. And just watch what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Now, you guys, if you all can see why Josh and I clicked, this is my man right here. So I have to tell you, I alluded to it before I brought him on today, but he and I are working on something very big right now. We have, and I must spill a little bit of the beans. We have an opportunity to do some work internationally. There's an organization that I'm a part of called I Change Nations, and they're promoting civility all over the world. So what we want to do, Josh and I are doing it. Hey, and if you're listening, you're interested, you need to hit us up. Because what we're going to do is we're going to get podcasts going all over the world. And we're going to make it so that people are going to have large audiences all over the world, which is going to get more and more people to engage. One of the things that we have found in this world is the world lacks civility big time. It lacks civility big time. But you know why it lacks civility? Because people aren't communicating. People are voicing opinions, but they're not listening. There's no communication going on. So what we want to do is make it so that people can not only give a voice, but a civil voice and have dialogue with one another so that we can bring about some peace. And Josh, we had a conversation last week with Dr. Clyde Rivers, and he's a visionary. He's the one behind the whole I Change Nations format. But I wanted to get your thoughts on what the conversation and what you see us doing, man.
Yeah, well, and I have to explain this by saying, like, our mission, I'm on a mission to find 1,000 of the world's best humans and just amplify and elevate their voices, right? Money is no longer my motivation, right? I'm saying, How do we find the best people, the best brands? How do we work with them? And I'm not saying, oh, we're going to go to McDonald's and Apple, right? I'm talking that nobody knows person who has truth and they need to share with the world. So I'm constantly looking for people who provide the best value, right?
Yeah.
They're bringing the best information to the world because there's, like you said, so much garbage out there. And it's time for a flood of good content and good people smashing the bad content, right? And I look at like what we're doing with Dr. Rivers, right? And the I Change Nation's mission is to, like you said, promote civility. But what we're trying to do here is say, okay, how can Barrett and I help with this? We're both big into media. So we said, hey, let's partner up on this. Let's find a way to get podcasts in every nation of the world. And something to give you guys an idea of this is that podcasts in general, I think it's like 78%, maybe 79% of podcast listenership and podcasts are produced in the US and the UK. That's not even like a third of the world's population right there. Most of the other countries, all 260 some odd other of them, they haven't even started into podcasts yet. They're still consuming radio, right?
Yeah.
And we're saying, let's take you to that next generation. And so what Barrett and I are trying to do is say, let's raise the tide and make podcasts available all across the world. And the way we're going to do that is by providing really amazing podcasts in all those different nations. So again, big shout out to everybody is like, come join us, right? Let's lift the tide.
Fun. It's gonna be so much fun. It's gonna be a lot of travel, but it's gonna be
on your part.
Yeah. Hey,
I'll come every once in a while, right?
Right. Feel free. It's gonna be a lot of fun though. We're gonna really enjoy that. So yeah, that's coming up very, very like yesterday soon. And so we're gonna be making that happen real soon. So Josh, before we end here, first of all, tell everyone where they can find your podcast, but also anything that you would like them to get together with you on.
Yeah. So first off, I mean, it's the Lucky Titan anywhere you go. I have no competition except for YouTube. There's a 14-year-old kid with a marbles channel. I've been trying to pay him to give it to me and he won't do it. I'm like, you're 14, take 10 grand and just walk away. But the kid's a stickler. He's a stickler. And I'm not going to sue him because he's 14. I'm like, he's being an entrepreneur. So I'm proud of it. Anyways, but the Lucky Titan anywhere you go. And I just want to give a shout out to the Media Boss podcast, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe this one. I mean, stick to it, share it with your friends. Like, this is an awesome podcast. Barrett is doing some incredible stuff over here.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man. And guys, you can see the link that we have below here for Josh. So if you want to check out Lucky Titan and what they're doing, hey, feel free to check out the link there as well. Also, guys, before I let Josh go, I want to make sure that you guys are paying attention not only to our podcast, but I found out is that a lot of entrepreneurs right now are trying to promote their business. Some of the ways that Josh had mentioned before, but they're not making money. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my free gift, 5 ways to paying clients. Go to 5waystoPayingClients.com. 5 ways to paying clients.com. It's a free training to show you how you can get some paying clients as well. I want to make sure that you guys are getting the most of your experience in working with me in any way you can. So on that end, I want to say, Josh, today on the Media Boss podcast, my friend, and you know you're welcome anytime because you and I are going to be spending a lot of time together anyway. So
I'll be here anytime you want, man. I look forward to working with your audience as well. A lot of great people in here. Excited
I appreciate it, brother. I definitely appreciate you. So guys, say goodbye to Josh and make sure that you guys are checking him out. Make sure you subscribe to the Lucky Titan. I mean, download it as well. Make sure you're checking out everything that this man has going on. So, guys, and we'll be right back to wrap up and have a boss out on the Media Boss podcast. Stay right where you are. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. Guys, welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. As I told you before, my show had a great guest today, and that was Josh Tapp. I want to thank him again for joining us. We're about to sign off. So guys, before I do, I want to tell you guys, look, make sure you support the show. Go to Patreon. Check us out there. You can also go, I told you, I gave you guys a gift, 5 ways to payingclients.com. Check that out, man. You're going to get some free training there. Also, don't forget, I have my challenge. That's right, my Make Money from Media 5-day challenge. Make Money from Media 5-day challenge. You guys check it out. If you want to learn how you can stop stressing over how to get your media out, whether it be print media, books, whether it be magazines, whether it be social media, whether it be streaming television, whether it be Amazon, Roku, whatever, whether it be film, all of these things, and of course, podcasting, you need to check out the Make Money from Media challenges, makemoneyfrommediachallenge.com. Kind of simple, huh? Also, if you would like to find out how to get your own podcast done, you can text me. Text the word podcast. Text the word podcast to 929-244-4323. That's 929-244-4323. But if you do nothing else, make sure you subscribe to the Media Boss Podcast and share that with everyone else. So with that being said, I only have one last thing to say to you guys, and that is, boss out.